Okay, Kyle, I think that you can go.
3, 2,
Two.
1. Yeah. All right, let's jump into it. So, hey everybody, thanks for joining the call today. Very excited to give you our State of the Nation presentation. I know it was received really well last year. And I look forward to getting into the details this year. I'm joined with David Strachan, Director of Engineering, and Mike Roe, and we've basically broken this presentation up into 3 sections, and we'll each be covering a bit, but you guys get to start with me. So let's jump into it. Your typical placeholder around confidentiality and so on and so forth. But first, let's start with the vision, right? The first thing I wanted to cover is I know you guys have seen this slide before, and it's important to realize, we got a really solid roadmap that we're going to share with you today. But at the end of it all, we continue to remain focused on our core value prop, right? Which is, building out digital experiences that bridge content and applications in context of what that end user is trying to do, right? What is that experience that blends those together and allows that person to, use your websites effectively, right? And, a big part of that is typical kind of use cases are focused on self-service experiences. And you can see them across the board about, the kind of core use cases that we use across the board. But really, I wanted to share this slide as a way to help you guys understand that we continue to remain focused on our core value prop and accelerate our value prop around our solution. Just to understand a little bit more around our direction, right? You'll start to see this term unified digital platform appear more, right? And this is a strategy across several products within HCL, across as many HCL software components as it makes sense, right? And the idea is to really help our customers build out meaningful experiences for their customers, right? The spectrum of who is contributing to that is continuing to evolve. And even within, some of the segments that we have around developers, such as, citizen developers, pro developers, full stack developers, right? Even those are getting segmented even more in terms of what their skill sets are and appropriate tooling around that. HCL has a vast set of powerful tooling for each of those developer skill sets. But not only that, we're starting to see the partnership between, say, a citizen developer and a pro developer, where, there used to be this concept of a wall that a citizen developer would hit on what they could and couldn't do. But now there's a partnership that's evolving between the citizen developer and the professional developer, where the professional developer can help build assets that a citizen developer can take and continue to build that out. So, tearing down those walls between development, allowing citizen allowing everybody to be productive in their skill set. And more importantly, it plugs into, independent of skill set, plugging into the tooling that runs your business, right? What ERPs are you trying to integrate with? What SaaS products are you trying to integrate with? What other HCL products are you trying to integrate with, right? So all of our focus is really about, when we think about development side and the developer role in DX, in particular, we really see it as that kind of spectrum that on a page, you could have 3 different developer skill sets contributing to functionality on that website. So anyway, so you'll start to see a more cohesive message around our unified digital platform as a way to accelerate what you're doing in the DX space and how you're delivering experiences in the DX space. You know, because if you really think about it and you think at the core of the practitioner, you know, and what that practitioner is trying to do, right, in terms of, you know, kind of core use cases that we see within DX, intranets, dealer portals, broker portals, customer service, so on and so forth, right? You really need a rich set of capabilities to manage that, right? From the ability to manage your site to putting in web forms, you know, low code notifications, so on and so forth. You really need a platform that allows you to assemble these experiences. And that's really at the core focus of this. You know, this is just a small set of the capabilities that exist within DX as a composition platform. And all of it is designed to plug into the businesses or the systems that run your business, right? What's core to your business? What experience are you trying to wrap it around? And the reality is that it's going to be not just one or two of these. It's going to be an aggregate of all of those things. And then lastly, you know, what you'll see more of this year is our focus on marketplaces. We have an HCL marketplace up and running, where you can go and find out about, you know, what our business partner add-ons have in there. And then also through Sophie, we have some of our stuff coming out of our lab and TA team around some additional assets. But we're going to continue to evolve that to make it easier for our partners to put solutions and capabilities, add-on value into the marketplace. Do that, but further also to think about other marketplaces that exist, like Amazon, Google, all the rest of that. You know, we have partnerships with all of those major providers out there, and so there's an opportunity for us to extend our reach that way as well. Quickly, just a little bit more on the you know, developer side of things, right? So if you think about what DX does well, it really is at that on the data side of things. It's really at that integration and aggregation level, right? We provide a rich set of tools for integrations to be built into it, right? It's part of the power of the toolbox that is DX, right? And if you look at specifically Volt Foundry, and what it adds, what it can add to the solution, we put out a sample app already where Volt Foundry is being used to call into some backend systems and pull out integration into the digital data connector. What Foundry can be used as a way to accelerate the development of the applications that go into DX, right? It has a bunch of connectors. It has a way to aggregate API calls, several API calls into one call. So we're an orchestration layer. It's got security layer around APIs, all the rest of that. So it on a development side, Foundry has the ability to really accelerate, standardize the integrations that get built into DX, right? And so we have a sample app out there, and we are looking right now at including Foundry into our new user session cloud native part number, so so that people can build out more meaningful integrations with that, and then, you know, obvious things around Helm charts, joint Helm charts, and so on and so forth. So, you know, this is something we're looking at as a way, again, to help our customers accelerate building out meaningful experiences within DX. And then if you look at it like, well, what's the outcome of that, right? Here's a great example of a self-service user experience for a company, right? And you can see, you know, in this example, there are a bunch of React-based widgets being built, leveraging Foundry API calls behind the scenes. that API call that's being used in for DX could also be pulled into a native mobile app built by Volt MX, the Irish side of that. So great reuse there. You build a meaningful API once, and you can leverage it across multiple different interfaces, and it just allows you to more quickly if you think about it as building out an omni-channel experience. It really allows you to streamline the data integration layer, and then build out appropriate, meaningful interfaces so that your mobile app or your smartwatch might want to take advantage of geofencing and all the rest of that, something specific to that UI or device, and you can absolutely do that. But the outcome of what we're trying to do with the UDP is to allow you to build experiences like this more effectively and efficiently. Okay, so that's my section on vision and kind of where we're focused over the next year on the data integration side of things. Mike, let me turn it over to you to talk about the platform.
I will do that. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Very good. Okay, so we'll talk through the next 3 charts, which is quite nice because I normally have quite a bit more than that. So you guys are going to be spared my voice here pretty soon. But yeah, Kyle, if you want to jump in.
Oh, yeah.
So we've been on this trajectory, I think, for a while. So hopefully this isn't shocking news or anything. But we have had traditionally quite a monolithic deployment, right? And we've been taking steps, but we've made some real progress in moving to this composable architecture, which effectively is going to allow us to separate the core kind of functionality from the packages that are deployed on top of it, effectively application services and platforms, and then also add in that marketplace layer, those extensions and add-ons that really make all of the mechanical Lego set actually work in the reality of whatever your exact experience needs to be. So we're looking at doing this in, I guess, the most portable way, so that, for instance, the core that we're talking about here, the basic functionality that's required for all these services will actually be shared amongst other services. So for instance, that same set of core infrastructure will be leveraged by the DAM, by Wickham, by Portal, but then also by potentially what other front end apps you have, or commerce and things of that nature. So we're really getting at the kind of composable architecture level. So where we're at today, if you'll move to the next chart, is basically we've got that monolithic deployment that we've always had kind of broken into these pieces you see represented here. So this is mid journey into that composable architecture. So we've obviously shipped Content Composer and the Ring and DAM layered on top of that, what we used to call core. But then each of those has its own components, image processor in the DAM's case, the actual front end UI, and then persistence layer. So you can see kind of how we're trying to break these things up. And obviously through the course of last year and ongoing through this next year, we're stepping into that that core runtime and pulling that over into a Liberty footprint that's going to go through some transformation in terms of how the services are put together as well. So, and then of course we have other components, Leap and Foundry, as an example, that are always or most commonly involved in these DX deployments as well, which will exist also in that container architecture. But when we get to the end state, we're going to look something like this. If you could move to the next chart there, Kyle. We will have the ability to have that core and those runtime kind of services that it provides with the add-on of if you do the build, the add-on of some of these supplemental services, right? The community service, what we traditionally consider the DX services, the Volt services, adding in Leap, and then some of the other augmented services that we've added, right? You know, it will provide a well-rounded out and rather configurable set of well, solution capabilities, right? That each of these things has isolation, has independent scale and management, but you know, on the whole, provide the entirety of the experience. You know, and that's just the runtime, right? Then we also want to have this separation that we're terming a kind of design time. So effectively, the tooling, the composition tooling that you're going to use to assemble all of those runtime services and core services into your own, you know, kind of personalized, customized experience that's going to meet whatever those requirements are that you have. So, you know, like I say, we're mid-journey here. You've all probably seen, you know, some of the, if not the whole of the transition we've made so far. And through the course of this next year, you're going to see quite a bit more progress in terms of separating these services out, becoming much more modular and configurable as a result. So that is basically where we're headed from a composable architecture perspective. If there's any questions, happy to take them now. We can take them at the end, but I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Strachan, who's going to take us through the next bit of the product update.
All right, so let's do something more concrete and near term than the direction that the two product managers have set out. So next chart, please. You will have seen versions of this before. Just this is a reminder, you know, we continue to ship DX updates every 6 weeks. Leap is on a slightly slower cycle. It is more like every 12 weeks, I think. But in order that we have something that we can talk about sensibly, we kind of bundle those up into annual milestones, which are named as we see here. The one that on this chart used to be called Sirius, but apparently we had to change that, so we now call it Perseus. There you go. So on the next chart, we're going to take a look at what we are doing just now. So Perseus takes us through to the middle of 2023. That is release 2.13, which is in July. And you know, most of the content is forward-looking, but I wanted just to look, you know, very slightly forwards to tell you what is in Perseus. So we have some content reporting capabilities that are going to be shipped. That allows you to do search and then bulk update. Fairly limited bulk update to start, but search and bulk update within the product. That's something that's been very heavily demanded. We've also been completing pieces of the Content Composer UI so that it is usable for headless content authoring scenarios. In the case that you want to access content headlessly, then you know you have a somewhat slicker content creation UI there than in the Wickham authoring portal. We've done a lot of work in Perseus, much of which we've already released around Kubernetes and the production readiness of our Kubernetes deployment. And we have some work going on around Open Liberty that I'm going to talk about in the coming charts. Again, much of this has been released. There's a little bit more to go this period around developer consumability. So DX Client is quite a lot more capable than it used to be. We're adding live sync capabilities to it, and we will sunset the old DX Sync and Web Dev Toolkit capabilities. We've added a bunch of APIs. We've done some work around integrating MX. There've been samples about building React applications with Maven and Webpack and Gradle. And there's also been a whole lot of work done on training and education, which largely delivered from the TA team, but nevertheless very important. I think we start to see the beginnings of some certifications there too. One of the features that we'll have right in 2.13 is around some authoring assistance using models that we've built, AI models that we've built ourselves, so that will be extensible till you can plug in your own one. And then lastly, we've done some work to integrate with Unica so that you can bring segmentation from Unica into DX so you can tailor the user experience with DX. So that's the Perseus milestone. Most of this is out already. A few things remain to ship in 2.12 and 2.13. But then after that, we start looking forwards to another major milestone 12 months later. So that is June, July 2024. We call that milestone Antares. Now, the roadmap for this is still very much being figured out, but we are looking at that under the heading of defining some outcomes that we want to get to, right? So just let me brush over those, and then I'm going to talk about them in a bit more detail. So The first outcome, very important one, is that by this time next year, we will have a production-ready deployment of DX on Liberty. Now, there'll be some caveats about what production-ready means, right? So probably we don't, you know, we wouldn't suggest putting the world's largest website or the most, you know, complex stuff onto it, but in some meaningful way, it'll be production-ready. We are going to spend a considerable amount of time focusing on adoption and developability, which will be focused on basically overcoming obstacles that we hear from you, customers and partners, about getting to Kubernetes and starting to build new experiences with the product. That may not come in the form of product features. Some of that might be documentation, tutorials, more courses on the HCL Software U site, the variety of things that could be. The two red ones around content authoring on the right-hand side, we are going to just do a basic restyle of PZN and Wickham and site management so that it looks a bit more modern. That'll be a restyle more than a redo of the UX, but even that we think will have some value. And then around the DAM, there's still some things to do with the DAM to make it production, you know, production ready in all circumstances. We've done an awful lot of work. We had a very generous customer who spent a lot of time with us helping us to figure out and find some of the issues that were in their way that we put back into the product that helps everybody. We're also going to decouple DAM from DX so that it can also be deployed separately. And then lastly, in terms of employee experiences, we have some services we plan on adding around people service and around a next generation activity stream that will make it much more meaningful to build powerful digital experiences for employees and actually also for supply chain B2B type people on top of DX. And those will be net new services that we create for you to integrate into your experiences. So it's quite an exciting set of outcomes. There's a lot of work going on to kind of define what features are under some of those things, but we're trying to think about it in terms of outcomes so that we can still retain a bit of agility when it comes to the features. So from the point of view of the platform, what does that mean? There's an awful lot of words on this chart and indeed the next two, but let's just go over it real quick. Where are we heading technically? First and most important thing, we are moving to a containerized deployment where we will not have WebSphere, we will have Liberty. Right, and lots of benefits to that in terms of performance, scaling, supportability. The goal will be that customer applications will be deployable with as little modification as possible. Right, there are certain concepts in WAS that don't exist in Liberty, so we'll have to figure that out. But the aim is that the bulk of customers' applications should be redeployable there relatively easily. Over time, we will then start to exploit Liberty capabilities for what it can do, whether that's more recent Java levels or other features. We obviously are going to continue to support WebSphere deployments. It's our core platform. It's where the majority of our customers are. Over time, the focus will shift there from adding features to, you know, facilitating migrations, basically. So that, for example, we have API compatibility mentioned there. You know, and so while we recognize that everybody still relies on that WebSphere core, WebSphere is itself, you know, it's in a maintenance state from IBM, and we need to shift our product focus towards containers and towards Liberty if we're going to keep it current and keep adding features that help our customers. When we add new services onto the product, we will do that as containerized things. We've already done that with DAM, but there are other services that are coming that I'll talk about in a couple of charts' time. And those will in general be done as containerized services. Part of the reason for that we call out explicitly here is to create some functional attractiveness as well as technical attractiveness to help customers build a business case to move to the Kubernetes deployment. And lastly, we know that Kubernetes is complicated and that many customers, you know, some are much more further on than others, but not everybody is, right? And so we will also be working to provide migration assistance, whether that's through product functionality, whether that's through simplifying options, whether that's through services, whether that's through partner enablement or documentation. There's a whole set of things. This kind of links back to the adoption point on the previous chart, but there's a lot that we can do on that just to make that a more digestible thing. And we've learned from those customers who've already gone that journey, and there's more to do and more to learn there. So that's our general platform direction. Now, in the next chart, I'm going to take you through the timeline for how we do that. So first line is about the portlet runtime. We have got now a running portlet container that Graham Harper has built, running on Open Liberty in a container. We will have that as a preview for certain nominated customers. And if you wish to self-nominate, then contact one of us and we'll talk to you about it. That's a remote portlet container, right, with WSRP running separately on Kubernetes, separately scalable, separately deployable portlets, basically. The goal there is to have that in preview the middle of this year with production usage supported around the end of this year or maybe early next year. And I put that separately from the next slide, which is about the Liberty version of the core. Now, that's not to say there'll be no portlet container inside the Liberty version of the Portal core, but we think that this pattern of separating portlet runtimes is at least consistent with the sort of Kubernetes operating principles, let's call it, right? Now, we're a bit further behind on Liberty than we are on the Portal service. We have it running. It's not the most exciting demo in the world because you just see a portal running. But on the other hand, we have it running up to the point of rendering the toolbar and rendering everything except the portlets, basically. We're aiming to have, again, a limited preview for nominated people around the end of this year, early next year. If you're interested in participating, then please reach out with a view to having that available for production usage in the middle of 2024, right? And then, of course, after that, we'll continue to develop that to exploit Liberty capabilities, maybe chip pieces off into separate services, variety of things going on there. Now, in parallel to all that, the next line is about new services that we're going to develop. Next one as well, Carl. Thank you. Right, I'll come back to the WAS Portal Core. We're going to continue alongside that Liberty product, delivering new services. We already mentioned DAM. We've talked about a couple of others. We'll talk about a couple more on the next page, but that's going to keep going, basically. Now, you might have the question, what's going to happen to the WebSphere Portal Core? Eventually, it will reach an end of life, but that's quite a long way away, and no one is going to be forced to jump in the near term, right? IBM guarantees support for WebSphere until at least 2030. I don't want to guess what they're going to do after that. So, we've got at least until then. If you think about the kinds of projects that are going to happen in the meantime, it's not that far away when you factor in planning cycles and so on, but it is not an uncomfortable distance, right? So it's important to note that that line that says WAS Portal Core does have an end to it, albeit that end is not particularly close yet. And of course, what that means is we're going to be looking to help customers migrate into this world from their non-Kubernetes deployments and non-Liberty deployments. One of the purposes of keeping the WAS Portal Core around is to help facilitate migrations. It may be easier for customers to go to Kubernetes with the WAS Portal Core and then move across to Liberty afterwards. We don't know yet, right? We expect that's going to have a peak in the second half of this decade, which is quite soon. But obviously with the planning cycles that many large organizations have, budget allocations and so on, and the need to sell that kind of spending internally, we need to start talking about it now and also to figure out what we're going to do to facilitate those and make those as painless as possible. Okay. So that's our platform roadmap, if you like. One last chart before I wrap. I actually think this is it's easy to see that roadmap and think that I've just shown and say, oh my God, there's loads of change coming. We need to be we are inside HCL really optimistic and really excited about the next 12 months. There's a lot coming in the next 12 months. It's kind of coming together. That means that, a year from June or July, the product will look quite different, right? A year from now, we're going to have a core of the product running on Liberty, faster, lighter, and so on. We're going to have an authentication service, which will be based on Keycloak, which allows for modernized security integration, basically native support for a whole bunch of stuff that today you have to do custom code for. We're going to have Volt Foundry in the product, which allows a bunch of capability, a bunch of connectivity, orchestration options, and that allows customers to build better experiences in the product. We touched on the remote portlet service on the previous page. For a lot of customers with portlets, that's appropriate for, that will help them with their scaling. It will help them with their startup times. The content reporting activity that I mentioned earlier will also have a search capability based around OpenSearch, again, containerized. Now, to begin with, we're just targeting that at the content reporting and content bulk updates. But once you have a search capability in the product that has an API around it, then you can use that as a foundation for building applications, right? Potentially very, very exciting. We're obviously going to restyle the product, so I mentioned that already. And then we've got a couple of stretch goals down the bottom that you see. That's why those are in italic and a bit grayed out. I'm not totally sure that we will have them done by 12 months, but at the same time, we will be a good distance down the road with those things. And so people service is all about profiles and networking. Activity stream is all about events and taking action in context. So I'm really excited. I'm really optimistic that we have a really good set of things coming. We have got a big transition to navigate that we want to help our customers through, that want to figure out how that's going to work. But at the same time, there's a lot of value in that transition. So the last chart is all about just saying, let's talk. We've hopefully left plenty time for a conversation here. And we'd love to know what you think about it and, what we're missing and all that kind of stuff.